Hi, True Crime Grapevine fans. It's me, Patty Lee. This is the True Crime Grapevines True Crime Headlines. This is what I also like to call my daily wine. You can spell it however you'd like. This is where I tell you about the crime that happened within the last 24 hours because there is too much crime and not enough time. So we will pour a serving size of red wine, heart healthy, as well as it's medicinal for one's mental health. Just a little touch. So let's drink up to surviving Tuesday, August 28th. Um, what do we have in store today? Well, there's a hurricane happening. That's not crime. I know. But are you like me? Do you watch Ryan Hall, y'all? Do you watch all the hurricane news? I am a weather watcher. I'm obsessed with hurricane season. I don't know if you know it starts in June and doesn't end until November, but that's the hurricane season. So not only it was kind of a slow day for anything about crime, not as exciting as sometimes we get. Especially Tuesdays tend to be big days, but it was a big weather day. So everybody's getting ready for Adalia. If you are up in the Big Bend of Florida, please evacuate. There's going to be a huge storm surge hitting as a cat 3, they think, maybe 4. But it's not going to be the wind that will be so damaging. It's going to be the storm surge. We're also tonight, I don't know if you guys know this, but hey, supermoon. It is a blue moon, meaning it's the second full moon in a month, which doesn't happen all the time. That's called a blue moon. And it's a super moon, meaning that the orbit of the moon sometimes is gets and is seems bigger. It's slightly closer to us because of how we are tilted towards the moon and how the moon is orbiting, so it looks slightly bigger. Now, again, not a crime, but maybe a crime of nature to which we can hold nobody responsible. But when you have the moon pulling the tides and you have a big storm surge that's coming, I'm not sure how the tides are working with it, but they are very concerned. All right. So that's my little weather talk. I hope you liked it. At the end, stick around. I have a true crime. It is a fictional crime story, but it's related about a crime that happens during a hurricane. Ooh, spooky. All right. What happened between yesterday, since the last time we spoke, and today? Number one, I have an update on the shooting at the UNC campus. That news was breaking as I went live yesterday, and I wasn't quite sure what was going on because there were some conflicting reports about if they had arrested the correct person, if they had let that person go, if it was the person they were naming, anyway, and if somebody had really been shot, and if so, who. So unfortunately, there was a death. There was a 38-year-old associate professor. So that means somebody who was on a tenure track but hadn't been granted full tenure yet. He was a 38-year-old professor, Dr. Ziyi Yan. He had 2 small kids, so that's horrible. He had brought this research group from him from Clarkson College, which I believe is in upstate New York, to uh, where he was working at UNC in North Carolina, and it was named after him, the Yan Research Group. Now, unfortunately, yes, the guy who we saw arrested yesterday, who I'm not even sure I'm saying his name correctly, Tali Kui, who was 34. He was charged with first degree murder. He's not going to be charged with the death penalty, but first degree murder and possession of a firearm in an educational facility. So he did unalive not only this head of the group that he was working for, but it was his advisor. So if you know anything about a PhD program, your advisor is the strongest relationship you have. It's kind of a like a it can be a best friend type situation, but it's somebody who does have some say, and they sort of like can make it easier or harder for you to get your degree. I mean, it really matters. You want to pick somebody for your PhD dissertation, this advisor person. You want them to be somebody who will help you get it done. There's no quite it's not clear yet why, but if you've ever been through a PhD program and that relationship goes awry, you might understand there can be some frustrations. The only thing that is being reported right now is that on August 18th, uh, the QI, he wrote on Twitter that he was hoping to get the principal investigator to handle something with these girls and tattletales. So there were 3 graduate students, including him, and 2 undergrads helping with this research program. The research program was about light particles and the nano level, so applied physics. We're just not sure what the problem was. Tattletaling, I don't know, was he getting in trouble and he was mad these girls told on him? What did they tell? Was he having problems with this program? He started the program January of 22, so he had been there a year, which that's making okay time still. So we're not sure what the problem was. I'm sure we'll find out more. So that's what we know. Unfortunately, they did get the guy that we were talking about. It was that man, and he unalived his professor, which is horrible. All right, that is the first update, the big headline. The second thing, I was talking to you, I was going to tell you this yesterday. Over the weekend, I had heard on Duty Run. So I like to give you, as an academic, I like to give you my sources or my main squeezes from the vine. And Duty Run had a live, and he was talking about the Lisk killer, and specifically, though, sort of tangential to the Lisk killer, because the Shannon Gilbert case, that is still unsolved, and it is different than the Lisk, the Long Island serial killers, Rex Heuermann. Those 10 bodies were all found on the north side of Ocean Parkway on the side of the road that headed towards Jones Beach. Shannon Gilbert was found on the south side of the east going lane in the marsh area where she ran into after leaving the date that she had in Oak Park Beach. Now, everybody's talking about is her death really just an accident, or is it related to Rex Heuermann, the Lisk killers, even though she wasn't exactly there? I mean, she was a sex worker. She was from New York City. She was out in the same area although there were some big differences, right? She had a driver. She was in a house and she got out of the house alive, and it wasn't Rex Heuermann's house. It was Brewer's house in that Oak Park area. So what does this mean? Well, Duty Ron was talking about that one of the police officers of Suffolk County was James Burke. James Burke was the man that we talked about recently that exposed himself and solicited a male park ranger who he thought maybe he was meeting him there, but he thought he was somebody that he was able to solicit for, activities in a park, which is, solicitation's illegal, that's illegal. His name was brought up because he was the one that was one of the people in charge during when they were looking for who had murdered all these girls. So he wasn't the police chief in that area that covers Oak Park Beach until 2012, but he was a police officer when all that was happening in the earlier 2000s. So Duty Ron was talking about it's odd that James Burke was around that time, and that the trouble he had gotten into had to do with so somebody had gotten into his squad car, and he had other previous problems in his squad car related to his sex worker girlfriend, who he had allowed at numerous times to drive his police car, I guess, and she once took it with his holstered weapon in the back, and then took it into her house, did crack cocaine with people, and and he didn't get fired for that. Um, and one of the things that Judy Ron was talking about was he didn't get fired because he had this like protector guy, this Spoda, Tom Spoda, I believe. But so he had long-term relationships with sex workers. He was also known to go to parties out on Oak Beach, like sex parties. All right, so that Oak Beach area, Oak Park Beach, we've looked. I mean, it's like 3 or 4 cul-de-sac type streets. It's not huge. So, and then we know Shannon Gilbert disappeared during a party. I mean, or at least a party of one. She went there for a date. James Burke was known to go there. Here's what I'm thinking. And I think this is what Judy Ron alluded to, but he didn't quite say it, but I'll say it because we're just talking about gossip. We're talking about the grapevine. So what if James Burke was in that house? What if that there wasn't just one guy? What if there was like other people maybe observing, watching? One of the things, that got stolen out of James Burke's car that he got in trouble for, that all the obstruction charges were because they beat the guy who took it, was in his car. He had a bag, his personal bag of stuff, including porn, including what has been described as a snuff tape. So look, I'm not going to explain that because YouTube probably does not like me because I said the P word instead of the corn word. But dude was into sex parties, obviously into the lifestyle, which is fine. But, as a police officer, a little weird because then you can get people off, literally and figuratively, on charges. He had tapes of somebody being perhaps unalived during SA, maybe, or maybe just us. So we know he was into that stuff, at least watching it, and the company he kept was the same people that Rex Heuermann was meeting, right? So here's the thing. He was known to party in Oak Park, and there's a Netflix movie called Lost Girls, I believe, which is a fictionalized version of the Shannon Gilbert story. But they have different names of the cops, but you can tell who's who. And one of them is this, who is supposed to be James Burke. Now, he was known for partying. After hours, he opened his office as a bar. That came out in his trial. So everything was fast and loose out there. He didn't assign more than one detective to look for all of those girls once their bodies were found. He didn't want the FBI in and helping. So it very much looked like he was obstructing the case of the Lisk killers as well as Shannon Gilbert. And they were saying, well, Shannon, she got freaked out. She ran away, mental illness. But Michael Pack was allowed to give a statement, but he wasn't charged with like being a pimp, which his role was that they could have charged him. And they sort of like ignored him. Was he paid off? Like, we don't know. We hear Shannon screaming on that phone call. I don't know. And there was a doctor that acted weird. So we have a weird doctor. We have James Brewer. I forget but he was a professional, but he was divorced at the time, alone in his house. We have a rogue cop whose lifestyle is more like a criminal than that. And then we have an architect, which we don't know if these people know each other. So I am sure what the police are doing, number one, is they're triangulating everybody's phones to see where everybody was. Could Shannon Gilbert just have coincidentally been at a house, been a sex worker, and because her family did have mental illness, did she get paranoid? She had stopped taking her medicine and ran outside, had hypothermia. She was found without her clothes, her phone, her purse. Now, hypothermia might make you disrobe quickly, but it's hard for. I was looking through all the open sourcing. It seems like her clothes, I mean, were they folded? They said they were found on the beach area, but she ran into the marsh and her body was found further, like closer to the road, but still in the marsh area. So I'm a little confused as to what exactly happened. And it doesn't help that the main officer, one of the police officers in the actual uh, at police station department, and then he becomes the main police chief, is involved in that same lifestyle as Rex and Brewer. And we don't know how the weird doctor fits in, but that dude did call Shannon's mom, just like Rex called people's moms. So we can see how people can see that perhaps. So we do know though that now the FBI is involved. They're very much looking. I don't think people have forgotten about Shannon, and the triangulation of the phones and where they were. I think they're going to look at all of this. And I wouldn't be surprised if we heard that James Burke was somehow involved in uh, either there was a group of professionals doing this and Rex happened to be one of them, or most likely maybe Rex was doing his own thing and then Burke, there was something that went awry with Shannon in that house in that neighborhood, and we'll find out about that. I don't know. What do you think? So this is where I'm supposed to say, hey, like, subscribe, hit the bell, put some comments. But seriously, do you think Shannon Gilbert, it was an accident, hypothermia, that's why she took off her clothes? Or do you think there was something more that happened in that house and perhaps the pimp was paid off to go drive away and not say anything? And why would you if a cop was involved, especially a high ranking cop who had the ear of all the authorities in the whole county? I don't know. What do you think? So, like I said, Judy Ron didn't say that, just intimated that perhaps there's more to James Burke's connection to Shannon Gilbert. Maybe he even just knew her and didn't want to look into her death. And then when they found all those other girls, considering his background, didn't want anything to do with that because then they would find out about his background with sex workers, which is illegal, technically still. I mean, it is. So I don't know if that's why. What do you think? Or if there's something more sinister. Police off the cuff had a couple of, other retired. It's Bill Cannon, which I love him because he's like a grandpa, but he's very much like the police do no wrong. Like he's very old school, like what you think of. I mean, I would trust him if I needed help. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, he doesn't. He doesn't suspend any sort of disbelief in the force, which I understand. Why would, I mean, you know what I mean? That's not that unusual. And he has a lot of expertise and he has people on his program. But Judy Ron, very much still retired New York City police officer. He has Ed Wallace, who is a forensic guy on him. They are still very much, following the rules. Like they don't have crazy speculation, but they also don't unilaterally just be like, no, the police are right. They couldn't do anything wrong. I mean, when there is some hinkiness, they call it out, which I appreciate. So if you've followed my show before, I like to, my gossip comes from like channels that have cops, lawyers, of defense and prosecution lawyers, as well as some YouTubers who really, though, go deep dive and have great evidence, like Gisla K and True Crime Grizzlies. So that's where I'm getting my information from. And I would just say, Like Bill Cannon and his crew, they're like, no, there's nothing to this. It was just an unfortunate accident. Could I see that? Yeah, it could be. Her sister had the same diagnosis she had, which was schizophrenia or schizophrenia like or schizophrenia with bipolar, which I don't know how you can have both of those, but she could become delusional. And her sister ended up stabbing her mom. And she was, I think, 27 at the time. And Shannon died at 24. So was she having an episode? Did it lead to her acting in a paranoid way? I could see it. On the other hand, like I can't tell. There's not enough evidence. I'm just saying the Burke guy, I don't like him. Doesn't smell right. And the fact that they nabbed him again, maybe again, that's just a coincidence. It happened right after Rex got, arrested. But it seems like this task force is still making connections. Now, in the list, Gilgo 4, I mean, there's really 10 bodies there out on that side of the highway. We found out about Karen Vargas, which was the Fire Island Jane Doe, whose part of her remains were first found on Fire Island, and the rest were found on the stretch of the Gilgo Beach, near, on that stretch, one of the 10. We heard that Peaches was going to be identified. So that is imminent. And Peaches was the unnamed, unalived person that had a peach tattoo. And the toddler that was found was genetically matched to her. It was her toddler. So we heard that's going to be next, that they did the genealogical investigation. So we're waiting for that. All right, so that's the second story. 21 minutes in, guys. The next thing that people are talking about, okay, Kohlberger. Everybody, I think I lose followers when I talk about Kohlberger because I won't just say he did it. Okay, so could he have done it? Sure. But I want more. I don't want touch DNA because we talked about transfer DNA can be moved from one person. I want more. I want Googling about the house, the girls, or at least how to stab without leaving marks. I want blood evidence. I want those traps checked in that house. Because what if whoever did it cleaned off in the house, and that's why, because there wasn't blood left out of the house. And before you guys go, no, but it snowed. It snowed the next morning. It didn't like after they had been found the next day, like during the afternoon. It did not snow that night. Where was the blood trail? Someone did this within 15 to 20 minutes. 4 people, including one, a full-grown man. There were defensive wounds on at least 2 of the victims. Where's the DNA? All the police talk about, I'm going to forget the name. If you look up, it's something like Licado theory of transfer, which is when a crime is committed, or even just when something happens, you leave your DNA there and you take some with you. Licado's principle of exchange theory. It's a forensic thing. Look it up. Principle of exchange, Licado's, I believe. I'm telling you, where is more than just the one little thing on a knife sheath? Not a knife. Where's the knife? Where's the blood? Where's his Google searches? I want more. Okay, guys, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying he didn't do it. I just want corroborating evidence. I want triangulation. And with the cell service lacking a lot of cell towers, like one time they said he pinged near the house, but then they said no, he was asleep at home. I don't like that the cell towers aren't that great. I don't like that they didn't have his car. We don't know exactly what happened yet. I'm not saying he didn't do it. I just want more because it's a death penalty. I think we all should. So why am I talking about him besides more stuff that will get people to click off, right? Here's why. It's going to rain, you guys. The defense, when the last time they were in court, the defense had a sealed motion, you might remember. And the sealed motion, it's under seal. We don't know what it said, but it was lengthy. The state has since, after seeing it, they responded to the court because now they have more time, right? Because we have a lack of, we're no longer having a, what's that called? The speedy trial. So they said this is a very lengthy response. And I think we know that. Wow, sorry, it's going to get a little loud here. The substance of it was to get rid of the grand jury and get rid of the indictment, is what Ann Taylor wrote about. We knew that what the point was. We just didn't. It was just sealed. So the state wanted more time. Peter Tragos of the Lawyer, highly recommend. He's a quick, relatively reviewer of what goes on, and he is a defense attorney in Florida, but he will really tell you what goes on. He handles a lot of civil and injury cases, but his dad handles criminal cases. He also handles criminal cases sometimes, not as often as his father, but they have a really good YouTube channel that will explain this in detail. But basically, he was like, yeah, they're going to get that extra time. And last night, there was an order from the court. Yes, they have until the 22nd of September instead of the 1st. They were going to have a hearing the 1st. So now they have until the 22nd to file their response to the sealed motion, and then it will be heard by the court on the 24th. The biggest thing was that, and everybody was flipping out, was that Kohlberger's attorneys, Ann Taylor, said, no more. We want no more courts in the courtroom, and her reasoning. We're not going to like it because we like to see in the courtroom. But the thing is, whoever was the poll camera, I don't know if it was Court TV or Law and Order, or Law and Order, Crime. Oh my gosh, Crime, Law and Crime. Anyways, one of those two big channels was the pool camera, and they screwed it up because they signed something at the beginning of this when Judge said they could have cameras in the hearings. He said, you can't just focus on the defendant. Like, you have to show the whole proceedings, and you can't zoom in. And what Ann Taylor has said, and then she provided also pictures of it, is, yeah, that's exactly what they've been doing. They've been zooming in on Kohlberger. Then those pictures are released and attached to articles that have nothing to do with court, just saying things like he's creepy, and that is poisoning the jury pool. But also, when they go in so far, she said it's a distraction because they have to be careful. They have to cover up because the camera can it's basically over her shoulder zooming in, and if she has an exhibit up, you can see. So she said it's distracting. It's inhibiting her from doing the court's business, and that it is unfairly prejudicing her client before he's able to get a fair jury. And Peter Tragos said they're going to get it. So, and one of the things she cited, as Peter said, I think also Emily D. Baker, was when the Chad Daybell case, when it was Lori's actual trial was going on, they kept zooming in and just really on Lori's face, on her hair. And they got it removed because they weren't supposed to be doing that. And guess what? Ann Taylor, cited that case as why she doesn't want cameras in this case. And Peter did say it's going to be precedent in the Daybell case. And here we go. So we had a chance to be and someone ruined it by, for clicks, getting in real close, and they can resell it. And I hope it was worth it, because now we don't get to see the rest of the trial. Probably, that not for sure. That decision hasn't been made, but the argument was strong, and it does seem rational. And personally, I think there's going to be a change of venue, because there's no way, I think personally, he can get a fair trial in that teeny tiny place, because everybody's out for blood, and they don't care if there's evidence or not. They just want this. They want vengeance, and I don't blame them. That's the thing. That's why we have to be so careful about bias, because we know that when people are frightened and angry and out of their mind with grief, they're going to go after whoever is offered up. And that's why our system tries to be more slow, more methodical. And I know it's annoying. So I'm almost at 30 minutes. I am going to, the other thing that I will talk about it tomorrow is what's going on with Carrie Rawson and her dad, Dennis Rader. There's new breaking stuff about that. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. I hope all of you are having a great, safe Tuesday. If you are in the Florida, especially the Panhandle, the Big Bend area, but anywhere in Florida, watch out. Have your weather radios on. Pay attention to the weather. Tornadoes are on the outer bands. It's going to then go up, I guess, into the Carolinas, like across through Jacksonville and up. So please, everybody, be safe. I will see you for more headlines, true crime headlines tomorrow. Oh, don't forget, if you would like to like and subscribe, that would really help, the algorithm. And if not, don't worry about it. I'll still be here for you each day around 6:30 Eastern Standard Time for about 30 minutes just to let you know what everybody's talking about on the True Crime Grapevine. Bye.